Welcome everyone. In the next 20 minutes, we are creating one of the most essential and commonly used dashboards in many industries today. Whether you are working in a sales department, tracking order placement to the order delivery process, or if you are working as a project manager, overseeing the project deliverables and milestones on time, or maybe you are a product owner where you want to track the product development process from idea to its production launch. In any of these scenarios, you need a visual representation like dashboards. In today's session, we will use Microsoft Power BI to create this performance dashboard using e-commerce website data. Watch full video if you want to learn writing your own custom functions and custom formatting using MScripting in Power BI. So let's get started. This is a sample dataset of a store that offers delivery services for orders. It has various attributes like service manager, department manager, and key figures like amount of the order. And this dataset also has several date fields, which in tracking the order delivery status at different levels and stages. Let's take a closer look at the process. There are 5 different stages. The first stage is a review stage, which is a period between order is placed to when it's reviewed. The second one is a quality stage. It's the duration between the review date and when the quality check is conducted. The third one is a packaging stage. This measures the number of days it takes from creating the package to loading it for transit. And the fourth one is a transit stage, the period between packaging loaded to the transit date. The final one is a delivery stage. So every stage has 2 dates associated with it. So that helps to calculate the number of days it's taking at each stage of the process. We have one more data set. In this data set, we have target days for each stage of the process, which indicates the deadline or target days for processing an order at each stage. This data set serves as a reference to evaluate the performance of each stage in this process. Now let's load this data into Power BI. Click on the Excel connector and import the store dataset into Power BI. Select both the tables and click on Transform Data. Review the loaded order delivery data and check for any data type conversions. Here, I'm changing the amount column to currency data type. Also verify the target table and the target days for all the stages. Next step is creating a custom function. We are creating a custom function called a getTargetDays. We are using 2 input parameters for this function, table name and a column name. Then our logic or the code goes in between these 2 keywords let and in. At last, we are returning that value. Using this function, if you pass the table name and the stage name as input parameters, this function returns number of target days of that particular stage name. We need one more custom function, that is days between, which basically takes 2 input parameters, which are the end date and the start date of each stage, and returns the processing period of that stage in terms of days. So let's create these 2 functions. Right-click on the target table and select Create Function option. Enter the function name as getTargetDays and then click OK. That takes you to the query editor, and then start defining the function with 2 input parameters, which are table name and the stage name. And then I'm writing my code in between let and in keywords. Now using these values from input parameters, I'm trying to filter the rows in target table. And then getting the target days from the filtered row. Then finally closing that function with a returned value of target days. Here, if you see, target table has a stage column and a target days for each stage. Let's test the function. Select the table name, target, and then enter the stage name as a delivery, which is returning an output of 7 days. Let's do one more test by entering packaging stage, which should return 3 days. Then similarly, I'm going to create one more function, which is a days between. So that basically calculates the duration between each stage. Start defining the function with 2 input parameters, start date and end date. And I'm writing the code in between the let and in keywords. Here, I'm using duration.days to retrieve the duration of the stage in days. Check for the syntax errors and click OK. Let's test the custom function by entering the start date and the end date. It returns 12 days as a processing time between those two dates. Next, we need to create calculated columns to derive the processing times of the order at each stage. Using the days between custom function that we just created, we are going to create these 5 calculations. Let's navigate to the query editor. Then click Add Columns and enter the name of the column as order review time. Here, I'm using the custom function days between, entering the end date and start date of the order review stage. Check for any syntax errors. Here, we need to change the data type to numeric because it's number of days. Similarly, we need to create calculations for the other 4 processing times: the packaging time, then quality check time, and then the transit time, and then delivery time. Now we have 5 columns which gives the actual processing days of an order at each stage of the process. Now let's navigate to the dashboard designer. On the canvas, changing the colors of the background, then using rectangular block shapes here, I'm adding placeholders for different visuals on the dashboard. On the left side, keeping placeholder for 4 big figures and adding a table to the center of the dashboard. Then adding 5 blocks on the right side to display average processing times at each stage. In parallel, also adding 5 blocks below to show the reference to the target days. Then moving on to adding a logo to the dashboard. Also adding a title of the dashboard. Use the format pane on the right side of each visual to format the fonts and colors. Then I'm adding a filter visual to the canvas and then assigning the field name service ID to it. Navigate to the format pane of the visual and change the styling to drop-down option. Arrange the filter to fit in the header section of the canvas. And change the visual fonts and colors using the format pane on the right side of the visual. Next, make 4 copies of the visual and map the second one to the department field, the third one to the payment type, and the last one to year. So that completes adding filters to the dashboard. Then add a table component to the center of the dashboard. Adjust the table to its full size so it fits into the canvas. Add the service ID to the table and change that aggregation type to do not summarize, so to display each value of the service ID in the table. Then add other fields like service manager, department, amount, payment type, so whatever the attributes that you need. And now I'm adding all the processing times of all 5 stages that we just calculated. Then change the label names of the columns. And then arrange the table column width to fit into the canvas. Then I'm adding a label as the average times to the top section and targets to the bottom section. We have 5 placeholders to display average processing times. For the first one, I'm adding a report card visual and mapping that to the order review time. Here, I'm changing the field aggregation type to the average and then go to the format pane of the report card and adjust the properties of the size, font, and the color. Here I'm using arrow shapes to indicate the stage reference axis. Then creating copies of the report card visual and placing them across other stages as the placeholders. Then select each report card visual and change the field mappings to reflect the average processing time of that particular stage. Then repeat the steps for the remaining stages. Then similarly show the reference target days in the bottom section. Go to the data panel, then select target days from target table, and then map it to the report card. And then adding a filter on the visual using the stage name and restricting that to order verification. And next, I'm making copies of the other 4 blocks to display the reference target days of each stage. Then select each report card and adjust the visual filter to restrict to that specific stage name. Here I'm repeating the same steps on each report card visual and restricting that to the packaging, then in transit, quality check, and then the delivery stages. So that completes the report cards on the top and the bottom sections. Now, moving on to the top left side, here I'm adding a report card to display the total number of orders and using a distinct count on service ID. Go to the format pane of the visual and adjust the properties like font, color, and adding the title of the report card. I'm making a copy of that report card and then map that to the total order amount, changing the aggregation type to sum. After that, adjusting the scaling and decimal formatting in the properties of the visual. We will be leaving these two blocks to the end since we need to create calculated columns for them. Now moving on to the table. Right now, this table is displaying processing times in days. It may not be delivering a clear message to the user, whether the order has been delivered or not, and what's its status like in each stage. For that, let's look at the next set of calculations to derive the status messages of the order at each stage. Here, I'm using the get target days custom function that we just created before and comparing that processing time of each stage against the target days of each stage. So that derives the three different statuses using if-else conditions for each comparison. Let's navigate to the Power Query editor. Select custom column and enter the column name as order review status message. In the first if condition, check if the order review time is less than or equal to the target days. Here I'm using get target days of custom function that we created. Pass the input parameters as a table name target and the stage name as the order verification. Then return the confirmed on time as output. Copy the lines and paste them below, changing them for the next condition where the order review time is greater than the target days. Then return order confirmation is delayed. The last else condition is in progress. Check for any syntax errors and click OK. Check the status messages to validate how they are displayed. Similarly, create status messages for the remaining stages. Packaging stage, quality check stage, transit stage, and then delivery stage. Now we have status messages derived for each stage. Then navigate to the report designer. Select the table and open the data pane. Select order review status message and map it next to order review time. Place packaging status message next to packaging time. Now we have processing periods in one column and their status in the column next to it. Let's make it even simpler by combining both columns and displaying them into one single column. Create 5 new columns for combined messages of each stage, combining both the columns. Here is the sample output that displays processing time in brackets before the status message. Navigate to Query Editor, add a custom column named Review Status Combined. Add order review time in open and closed braces, appending the text using ampersand operator. Next, append that to the order review status message. Check for the syntax errors and click OK. Seems like it is throwing an error. Let's find out why. It is clearly showing here that we cannot append a text and a number. Here, processing time is a numeric field, so we are going to do a typecasting, converting numeric to text. Check for any syntax errors and click OK. Now you will see all the combined messages displaying both processing time and the status message of each order. Similarly, create combined messages for packaging stage, quality check stage, transit stage, and delivery stage. Now we have combined messages for all 5 stages. Let's navigate to Report Designer. Delete all the columns that we placed before. We are just going to use the combined columns that we just created for each stage. Once the columns are placed in the table, rearrange and adjust the table to fit all the columns. Change label names to reflect the stage name on the table columns. Then go to the Format pane of the table and change the formatting and colors of the table headers. To enhance the data visualization and make it more intuitive, I want to add background colors to each cell of the table based on the status message. If an order is on time, displaying background color as green, for the delayed orders as red, and color yellow for orders that are still in progress. So let's see how we can do that. Here, using the same logic again with if-else conditions, I'm going to assign different colors like red, green, and yellow colors at different conditions, checking for those keywords whether the order is confirmed or delayed using a text.contains function to find the keyword in the status message. Here, you can see the sample output message of how it displays confirmed on time with a green background and delayed ones with a red background. Let's navigate to the query editor. Select custom columns, enter the column name as order review color. Write the first if condition to check for the keyword on time in the order review message and assign the color green, or you can also use the hex color codes. Write an if-else condition for the delayed orders and assign the color code as red. And for the last else condition, assign a yellow hex color code. Check for any syntax errors and click OK. You will start seeing the color codes displayed in the column. Similarly, create color codes for all 5 stages. Now navigate to Report Designer and select the Fields pane. Select the column and choose a conditional formatting option, then choose a background color. Under Format Style, select Field Value, map the color fields created for the order review stage, then click OK. You will start noticing the background colors of each cell in the table change accordingly. Repeat the same steps for the packaging stage by selecting the packaging color codes. Then repeat the same steps for quality check stage by selecting the quality color codes. Repeat the same steps for all 5 stages to start displaying the colors in the background of each cell in the table. That completes the table cell formatting. Now let's move on to the left out big figures on the top left corner. Here I want to display the order count which is delivered on time by filtering the report card visual to delivered on time. Then map the order count where order delivery is delayed by filtering the report card visual to delayed. That completes the mapping of all report card visuals on the dashboard. Now, approaching to the last step, we will see how we can change the report card colors based on its value. These report cards display average processing times of each stage. Let's see how we can write the logic in DAX. Here is a logic for color formats using DAX. The logic is pretty similar to what we created in Power BI using MScripting. Since the report card is displaying the average of the rows at runtime, we need to assign the colors using DAX scripting. Let's see how we create these columns in Report Designer. Go to the data panel and add new columns and then enter the column name. Calculate the average of the order review time and assign 3 different color codes based on the logic. Compare the average order review time to target days from the filtered rows of the target table, where the stage name is order verification. Here, I'm also using max function to handle any duplicate rows, taking the top row in the filtered list. Check for any syntax errors and click OK. Select the report card and open the formatting editor. Select field value and choose the review average color. You will notice the report card color changes accordingly. Apply the same color formatting to the pointer below. Select the shape, go to the format editor and map review average color. The pointer will change its color accordingly. Since the target days of the review stage are 2 days, any average value exceeding 2 will be displayed in red, indicating that processing time at the stage exceeds the target limit. Apply the same logic for all the report cards to complete the custom formatting. Then finally, save the report and publish it to the server. That concludes the session for today. I hope you gained some knowledge and found this video very useful. Thanks for watching, and I will see you again in the next video.